Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where we love to educate and inspire the community to live more healthily, feel more balanced and truly live a lifestyle they love. And today for our first guest, we have Pauline Rooney, a yoga for wellbeing instructor and author. And first in a series, the topic today is mental health. So Pauline, welcome.
Thanks, Linda. It's great to be here. It really is.
So Pauline, how can yoga assist people with mental health?
Oh, Linda, it's unbelievable the assistance that people can have by learning very simple techniques. Breathing is the powerhouse. It's absolutely the powerhouse. When it comes to mental health, we have so many areas. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's bipolar and on and on. And all of these illnesses, if you like, can truly be assisted with the power of our breathing. And I just love the breathing because we take it in our seasons. So we breathe for summer, autumn, winter and spring. So you see, we all have different mental feelings at these different times. Some people find that they have what's called SADS, seasonally adjusted disorder, right? You've heard of that, I'm sure. And so consequently, we breathe differently, and that settles our mind and calms us. So the breath, I cannot stress enough on the power of that. And when we're talking about breath, we're not just talking about breathing. Much deeper than that. We focus on the breath coming in through the nostrils, right into the base of the lungs, and then we talk a lot about the diaphragm, how it drops down to let the breath in, pushes up to let the breath out. So that's a part of really learning that technique of the diaphragm coming in and out, focusing on which nostril is breathing best. I know this all sounds a bit interesting, but when you learn it, the power in this to steady your mind and refocus. And if you're anxious about something, your mind then starts to play games. I call it run a riot, but it does, and it thinks of things that are totally irrelevant. However, if we can come back to focus on that breath in and out through the nose, and focus it going into the lungs, flowing out, focusing on each nostril in turn, all of those types of things, we settle immediately, right? And that is what is so important, to bring the focus to one point. It's when the mind shatters out, if you like, and that's going here and there and absolutely everywhere, we feel out of control. So as soon as we come to one point, the mind seems to have time to recollect. And in the yoga, so many of the professionals are using now breathing techniques, other techniques that we have in the yoga, physical techniques, and some people need the physical aspect of the yoga to really push through their body and feel what it's doing for them. But with that, of course, Linda, every posture requires breathing. So when we move our arm, we don't pop it up in the air. We choose to breathe in to lift and breathe out to put down. So when you breathe in, everything is lighter, right? So it makes the mind lighter. It's a fabulous way to get into thinking of life, mental health or not. If we can all just breathe that beautiful, deep, deep breath, we'd all have a lot calmer lives, I think. I don't think I know. And it'd be wonderful for all of us to calm down, to think one thought at a time. And we try to do too many things. We try to do this, that and the other, and somehow or other we've learned to have pride in how many things and jobs we can do at once. And that's confusing the brain, confusing our mindset. I'm a great believer in one job, one mind. And that requires one job, one mind, one breath, in and out. And that keeps us focused on that job. And if you've got mental health, you need to be able to focus on the job at hand. Otherwise, you feel you're not completing. You're not, and I'm sure you and I have both felt we've tried to do this and that and something else. We don't feel as though we've achieved everything successfully. Whereas and we probably haven't either, you know, but if we slowed that down and did one job with one breath, well, of course you're breathing in and out, but we say one breath, then you've completed that job calmly, completely, and with intent. So it's done much better. And then you go to the next one. But if you have a mental health issue, it doesn't matter across the spectrum of mental health. If we can really understand and appreciate that one breath, one job, bringing that mind back, I know I've repeated it, it's just so important. There's many techniques in breathing. There's what we call the alternate nasal breathing. There's what we call Nadi Shodhan. Then there's the Brastrika. It's the winter breath where you use your diaphragm to pump in and out. It warms and it really helps. Then there's the Kapalabhati, and that's spring and autumn. It's fabulous if you have hay fever or any of those types of things, which of course if you suffer with those, you do have a lot of anxiety, right? It does lead to anxiety, I must say.
Pauline, then what would be a takeaway for our viewers today?
One of the best, simplest and fabulous takeaways, I believe, is using our tall man and thumb and bringing them together on both hands. And it's so good, Linda. You can have it under the desk, under the coffee table, or while you're walking up the street. You pop those tall man and thumb together and it calms you down, right? So if you're feeling a bit nervous or anything like that, pop those two together and immediately you calm down. And if you have got mental health or issues across that line, it works splendidly well because it brings you back into that one mind, one breath, one job. And even for us, you know, we all get a little anxious, we all get a little nervous. So tall man and thumb on both hands, and that's the best tip I can give you.
So well, thank you, Pauline, for today. And now we'll go to break. For more information on Pauline Rooney and Yoga for Wellbeing, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll be back with another wonderful guest and another wonderful topic.
After the break, animal communicator and therapist Carolyn Pope demystifies animal craniosacral therapy. Welcome back. Today we have Carolyn Pope in the studio. She is an animal communicator and therapist, and today we are going to be demystifying animal craniosacral therapy. Hello, Carolyn.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yes. Now tell me, can you explain what animal craniosacral therapy is?
Pretty much the same as human craniosacral therapy. A lot of people will know it as CST for short. Derived from osteopathy. It's a very hands-on therapy, but literally the most pressure you're putting on is that of a 5-cent piece. So it's much more allowing the body what it needs to do rather than trying to force the body, because what a therapist thinks the body needs to do versus what the body knows it needs to do can kind of be a bit like the Montagues and the Capulets, really. So it's very gentle and it's releasing restrictions, allowing the cranial rhythm to re-establish a correct path, and the animals benefit greatly from it. Yeah, so the most pressure I'm putting on is literally that of a 5-cent piece. And I often say to my clients, it's like watching paint dry, because they're just sitting and the dog or cat may close its eyes, it may lay down. You're not seeing much. But what's actually going on internally, there's a lot of recalibrating, and it's really, really big. If you ever have a CST yourself, you're going to feel a difference. And that's why I actually collaborate with a vet, because she will bounce information to me, or I will say to her, not quite sure about X or Y, can you please check that out? because no one person can fix everything. And often if I'm feeling restrictions, say for example in the spine, everything runs off the spine. So the moment the animal's movement is compromised, so is its digestion, its elimination. Dog may well be having heart problems, for example. All the nerves for the heart innervate out of the parietal bone and go down through the thoracic. So if your dog's got problems in its thoracic area or the parietal bone's jammed, that makes a huge difference to what the dog's heart is doing, and its medication may need to be adjusted. Everything interreacts with everything else. It's the one body. We're past the days of saying, this is good for the heart. The fact that your liver's going to keel over in 6 months has got nothing to do with it. It's that integrative, holistic approach.
And how did you get into it and why?
Started with cranial for myself because I had thyroid problems at the time and really, really bad migraines. And CST actually got rid of them. I was literally being injected every second day with really heavy duty stuff, didn't need anything. Because I'm me, I pushed my therapist to work on a horse I had at the time, and I'd had him for, I think, 6 years by that stage. Great horse, but he'd always been tetchy to put a bridle on. Deb released his temporals, which are temporal bones, which are basically releasing around the ears. And from that day on, I never had another issue with a bridle. And of course, that got my very instant and undivided attention. Started exploring it, spoke to a few clients about it, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to afford it at the time. Had a phone call one day, picked it up, and it was one of the clients. They'd banded together and went, right, you're going to owe us X amount of CSTs. There's a course coming up. This is where it is. We've paid for it. Off you go. So I was incredibly lucky. And from the first day, I was just hooked.
And can you explain exactly what it is you do?
Animal will come in. I also use a bioenergetic handheld device because it speeds things up and it helps calm the animal, because no animal likes being on a table. I mean, obviously horses aren't going to go on a table. That's a little different. But most animals don't like heights in the same way I'm terrified of it. So it helps. And it's literally a hands-on therapy. I can start sometimes at the back end. Other times I'll start with one hand under the chest or the neck or the head. It really depends on the individual animal and also where they're comfortable, because a lot of animals, particularly dogs, can be quite head shy. Or if their neck's really sore, they're not going to want you putting hands on, and trust is earned. It's not given. And if a dog's got a really big problem, or any animal at one end, starting at the other builds up trust and releases the restrictions. So by the time you get to where the problem really is, they're not worried. And a lot of the time they'll literally lie down and just pass out, which is really nice.
And what sort of ailments do you treat?
Pretty much anything in the age bracket. Arthritis, stiffness, can help with a lot of dogs that start getting lack of proprioception and neurological as they get older. Vestibular disease in dogs and cats is a big one. Epilepsy, pretty much encephalitis, pretty much anything, because it improves health. It's no different to you. It's being proactive rather than reactive. And of course, the earlier you can get to something, if you can, it's the same as us. If you start treating whiplash within the first 48 hours with anti-inflammatories, your long-term prognosis is going to be quite different. If your dog's leapt off the beach wall and crashed onto the rocks or whatever, getting onto it in the first 24 to 72 hours, the dog's going to have a lot less issues than if you wait 6 months and all the compensatory patterns have built up. No different to us. You really need to be proactive, and long-term it's cheaper too to be proactive rather than reactive. I say to people, change of seasons, but you may well find that your dog or cat needs one session a week if they're acute or it's been let go for a really long time, for 4 or 5 weeks, and you may get down to 1 trip a month. But if you stretch it out to 6 weeks, you might be back to where you are. And it's not fair to our animal friends to leave them in pain when we can make some lifestyle adjustments and change the quality of life so very, very much. Because at the end of the day, quantity is great, don't get me wrong. We all want our animals to live to an old age. But if there's no quality, it's all irrelevant. And this is where holistic health and, in my case, craniosacral therapy makes such a difference. It's about the quality of life. And the more we can do to improve that, the happier everyone is.
And can you please give us some advice on how to have a healthy and happy animal?
Be proactive. I generally say every change of season, as they start to age from about the age of 6, possibly 4 with the larger dogs, because of course there's all the rate of aging. But just stuff like all your moodle-oodles and anything with hair under the pads, trim it back, because otherwise it's like you walking in socks instead of bare feet. They slide, they hurt themselves. Tiles, floating floor, timber laminate, polished floorboards, really bad for dogs and aged cats. I know they're a pain, but carpet runners are your best friend, and they can literally, in a lot of cases, be the difference between an animal being on painkillers and not, because every time they slide or scrabble, that's all we see, they experience a lot of pain. Just getting your flooring right, that's where your dog or cat spends 80 to 90% of their time. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Carolyn. That was really interesting and very educational. For those interested in learning more about Carolyn Pope and animal craniosacral therapy, please head to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and hang around for after the break. We have another amazing guest. Stay tuned. After the break, optimizing coach Helen Mac is talking about maintaining momentum.
Welcome back. And next we have Helen Mac back with us for the third in her series about optimizing outcomes. And today it's about maintaining momentum. So over to you really, Helen. How do we maintain momentum?
Isn't it hard? Sometimes we get things going, we just get started and then something gets in our way and we grind to a halt. Or it just feels so hard that we never even get going in the first place. So maximizing momentum is about taking advantage of the little improvements, of the little successes that we have along the way. So the idea here is one of the important elements is celebrating success, even tiny wee ones. Often we wait to celebrate until a big thing has happened, until we've achieved something wonderful and marvelous, and it just gets so hard to keep going because the good goals, the big goals that we achieve during our lives, whether that be a community goal, a family goal, a health goal, a wealth goal, whatever, they're not going to happen overnight. The big ones take time and effort. If we don't take time out along the way to go, yay, I made a tiny step forward. Yay, I made that adjustment. If we don't celebrate along the way, then it can very much feel like a grind. So maximizing momentum is partially about celebrating the baby steps along the way and not waiting until the end for the big party. As you and I know, sometimes goals change. If you wait till the end, you might not get to the end that you thought it was going to be. You might have had a detour and end up in a completely different outcome in terms of what you want to be able to celebrate. So as a very small example, I got married in isolation. So we had all kinds of plans for this fabulous wedding ceremony that we were going to have, and it ended up being me and my beautiful new husband and 8 friends in a library at his farm. It was wonderful. But if we had only chosen to celebrate the big event, then we wouldn't have been celebrating the little wins along the way, the little pieces of the puzzle that fell in. The fact that my dress arrived 48 hours before the wedding, that was a celebration. So all of those little pieces kept us going at a time when sometimes it felt really, really hard. We need to make sure that we're recognizing our efforts and the efforts of others in our team, our crew, our family, our group. Recognizing other people's efforts can also help our momentum build and grow.
It can even be, because I was just tuned into that, I kind of heard a lot of this stuff, and then I thought, what really clicked with me was something like, and I'm sure you use this, is like giving yourself a treat when you get to a certain stage, or really celebrating it in a way that is important for you.
And what you've said there is perfect. What's important to you. So what you might use to celebrate and what someone else might use to celebrate can be two completely different things. And I think we also have an unfortunate habit of deciding that we're going to celebrate with big stuff. So as an example, I'm a reader, I love reading, and so a treat could be just spending an hour with a book, curled up in a corner, or it could be going and buying a book, whether that be online or wandering to a bookshop. One of my very good friends and business partners, what he does is when he's achieved a small goal that he wants to celebrate, he takes himself off to the movies. He has 3 young children. He goes to the movies to watch a U-Butte, boys kind of adventure flick, no children, popcorn, relax, do nothing for a couple of hours, and then comes out refreshed and ready to take the next step. So there's no rules about what the celebration has to be.
No, that's wonderful. It just is what boosts your optimism, isn't
Correct.
it?
Right. What makes you feel good, yeah.
Great. How we can maintain an optimistic attitude, especially, there's always changes happening in life. We always have the things evolving, as you've been sharing in previous segments. And how can we maintain that?
So when we're looking at maintaining momentum, the optimistic attitude is clearly part of it. We need to be able to roll with the punches. We need to deal with the ups and downs. I think if life was just flat and everything was the same all the time, it would be quite boring. But we do have to deal with peaks and troughs. We have to deal with detours and obstacles. And to maintain momentum, we have to do 2 things simultaneously. We have to keep our eye on the prize. So we have to keep one eye, if you like, on the ultimate goal, and keep checking that we're still on path for that, or has the detour taken us somewhere we like? And then the second piece is that we need to keep an eye on the road ahead of us. Is there a dirty great big hole? Do we need to detour? Are there things that we need to adjust so that we don't have too many troughs? Because sometimes the troughs that we fall in are of our own making. Sometimes we need to make sure that we don't fall into those troughs. But if we do, that's okay. We're allowed to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and take the next step.
Such a thing as too much of a good thing, too much momentum about going forward?
Yeah, I think sometimes if we're changing too fast or taking on too many new things, our system goes into shock. And so too much momentum, too much change can be exhausting. So it's great to really get yourself going, but make sure that you're monitoring your energy levels. Make sure that you are filling yourself up both with food and water, like the general, nutrition type things, but also with hanging out with good people, putting in some positive or affirming information into your head, making sure that you're not spending time with people who are naysayers about your goal. So too much momentum can be exhausting, and if we get too fast, we sometimes just need to go, okay, I just need a time out. Sometimes too much momentum will take us past the point where we should have made an adjustment, and when we end up at the other end of the road, we'll go, this isn't quite where I wanted to be.
And easy to go off course then, I suppose, and go off on the path and suddenly realise that that's not really good feeling for me.
That's right. If we go back to our questions from last time, just checking in with the why. Why was I doing this in the first place is a good way to check. And from years ago, I remember going to a training around goal setting in the business, in the corporate kind of sense, and they said, it's all very good to be climbing the ladder, but every now and then you have to make sure that it's leaning up against the right wall.
Thank you, Helen. And we'll finish the show now on that. And for more information on Helen Mac and optimising outcomes and maintaining your momentum, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we'll be back with Helen next time talking about how to maintain an optimistic mindset.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.